Pleased to be speaking with Pete Harold this morning from Rumble Resources on JustStocks. Pete, morning. Good to see you.
Morning, Andrew. Good to see you too. Look,
fairly early days here for you, Pete, in terms of taking on the role of Chief Executive at Rumble, about 3 weeks. Just give us a recap here as to Earaheedy and the Mato discovery.
Yeah, well, look, obviously, as you say, 3 weeks into the job, spent a couple of days last week up at the project, which was great, getting to know the team and the stakeholders and just how big this thing could be. I mean, Earaheedy, it's a big zinc, lead, silver system. It's a virgin discovery. We're talking about hundreds of millions of tons of ore potentially. Or mineralisation, and over a number of different deposits. And Mato, as you said, is a new discovery just announced recently. It's tens of kilometres potential of strike. There's a number of ore bodies that we've discovered. At this stage, they're all in the inferred category, so we'd have to do some infill drilling. But right now, the work that we're doing, we took a fairly large sample, about 2 tonnes of core just before Christmas. We've brought that down to Perth, and that's in with a couple of labs, and we're doing some dense media separation test work. A lot of these VMS style or VMT style ore bodies are upgradable, and as viewers and a lot of people in the markets now are aware, a lot of projects, the grades can be upgraded substantially between the ore body itself. When it's mined with dilution and so on, the grades can drop. And then when you put them through a dense media separation or ore sorter, you can upgrade the ore body or the ore that's been fed into the mill. The benefit of that is that you can have a smaller mill, which is lower capital and lower OPEX. So that's something that we're really excited about here. And it's worked for other projects. There's a couple of other good proxies of zinc projects around the world. So we're very hopeful that we're going to have a DMS announcement in the not too distant future, which will be positive.
And so looking ahead to other upcoming milestones, where are we in terms of some metallurgical studies and early scoping work?
Yeah, well, that test work is underway. One of my colleagues, Peter Venn, has been down at the laboratory a couple of times this week, checking it all out. We're hoping that all that test work is finished, or that program, which includes some metallurgical optimization as well, because there are different ore bodies, obviously, and also the DMS work. So look, by mid-year, we should have announced the findings of that work, assuming it all goes according to plan, and that will then help us a lot with sort of trying to work out how we scope this project up. What the next phase would be. Do we drill out just one of the ore bodies or more than one? I mean, all of these things we need to, but until we get that metallurgical data back, we're a little bit flying blind. So that's a very important part of the puzzle.
And I believe you've got heritage clearance, have you, for further extensional drill programs?
We've had heritage clearance on a large portion of the ground. There's other areas that we need clearance on, and we had a meeting with the traditional owners when I was there, the first time I've met them, which was last week, and we're planning a WATI, which is a sort of a get together with the group sometime in the next couple of months, and that'll be a really important sort of session between our team and the local Indigenous group to work out our plan going forward. I mean, they've got they understand what we're trying to achieve here. They can see that it's potentially when we're talking about a project that could be multi-decade, it will certainly see me out anyway.
Well, what gets you excited, Pete, or enthusiastic when it comes to the outlook for zinc?
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, I was involved in zinc 30 years ago when I first started in base metals back with the Golden Grove project in the late 90s. And, back then, I think it was a sort of a 5 million tonne market. Now it's 11 million tonnes a year and growing at about 5% per annum. And still, 60 to 65% of that goes into galvanising. So, pretty much every roof you see around the place, all over the world, it's galvanised steel, ColourBond or whatever it might be. The underbody of your car, there's so much galvanising. And then, of course, there's potential for, there's, in the EV space, there's obviously requirements for zinc cream, zinc oxide in paint. I mean, there's just a lot of applications. People don't even realise how much zinc is around. And I just like the outlook. There's, if you look at the supply-demand curve, and we've got it in one of our presentations, it goes like that, and then the supply just falls off a cliff. So there's a huge gap potentially, which will be filled. But my sense is that that'll be filled with new discoveries like Earaheedy and a higher commodity price. And South32 have announced that they're going ahead with their Hermosa project, and they're using $1.40 a pound as their sort of, base case zinc price. And currently it's about $1.10. So it just demonstrates, their bullishness around the price. And I would support that 100%, because otherwise you won't fill that, supply gap that the demand is anticipating. So yeah, it's very exciting. And it's the fourth most consumed metal in the world, behind iron ore, copper and aluminium, which is something I think a lot of people don't get. And after coming out of nickel, which has had a lot of volatility, it's nice to be into a commodity which is sort of 4 times as much demand, and with a really interesting supply demand balance, unlike nickel with all that Indonesian supply that's come on.
I bet. Pete, look, Earaheedy is not the only project within the Rumble portfolio. What are your plans for some of these other assets?
Look, it's a good question. We had an internal strategy session yesterday, just so I can sort of come up to speed, and we've got some interesting stuff in multi-commodities. I mean, Braeside is certainly an interesting one. We've got Wadawara, which is, or I think that's how you pronounce it, Wadawara, which is got lithium potential as well as nickel, copper, cobalt. So that's something we're interested in. Waru's another one, which is a multi-commodity project. Western Queen, which is actually 160,000 ounces of gold, which is something, given right now with the gold price where it is, we've actually had quite a few expressions of interest to acquire that from us. And so we're certainly considering whether that might be something we divest. So there is a process underway there. So that's something that we're considering. And obviously, if we do a transaction, we'll obviously announce it, and that could bring some cash into the system. Because obviously, right at the moment in this market, it's difficult to raise funds from the equity market in new equity. So if we can find an asset to monetize, that would obviously be well received, and I'm sure the geologists will be happy if we can fill up the tin so that we can, spend some of that money on some well, certainly Earaheedy, but some of those other projects as well. So we've prioritised the other projects that are in the system. Clearly, Earaheedy is our primary number one project, and then we've sort of got these other projects that sit sort of tier 2, tier 3 in terms of our priority. But yeah, there's some really interesting stuff in there, and it was we spent half a day on it. I was fascinated with the amount of work that's been done, some of the intellectual property that sits inside the business. There's some very, very clever geologists in here, and that's going to be that's how we've put together this suite of very interesting assets, all of which are potentially, could lead to significant discoveries outside of Earaheedy. So we need to focus on those at some point in time when we've got the funds available.
Yeah, great to see you, Pete. And thanks for your time on Just Stocks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andrew. Great to chat.